Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Glory Glory podcast with me, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is a special guest, Jay Motty from Stretford Paddock. How's it going, Jay?
Yeah, good man. Good to come on again. It's been a little while, so it's good to have a chat with you.
Yeah, fantastic to have you back on the show. So, what we're going to do today is preview the Sevilla game, talk a little bit about transfers, players on loan currently, and a wee bit of takeover talk as well, unfortunately, because it's a bit tedious now, isn't it?
Dragging on in it. Hey, hurry up and get them gone.
Yeah, definitely. So Sevilla coming up on Thursday night. I mean, we've already beaten the team top of the league in Spain. We've beaten the team in fifth. You think we could beat a team that are, you know, in danger of getting sucked into the relegation zone in La Liga? You think this would be a walk in the park, even without Rashford and Luke Shaw, who might be missing for this game? Hopefully, I want to do what we did in the Betis tie, where we blew them away basically in the first game, and then the second leg was just a non-event really. But we just needed to see it out. So hopefully we can do something similar here. Sevilla, would you believe, have had 11 red cards this season? The two
Crikey.
in their previous game. Hopefully they can get more.
Yeah, exactly.
um, Papa Gay and Corona, not the beer, um, are not registered for this competition. Um, yeah, but yeah, I'm looking here. Um, but they do have players just like us. Like we have Casemiro and Bruno who are in danger of missing the second leg if they get booked. They have three players in a similar situation. Um, June Jordan, Rafa Meyer, Gonzalo Montiel. They will all miss the second leg if they're booked too. Not that I really know much about these players, to be honest with you. They changed their manager quite recently as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
George Sampaio was sacked, and now they have Jose Luis Montalbar. And they are the masters of the Europa League. They've won the trophy a record 6 times since 2006. But looking at their form this season, they have been abysmal. And we're in the top four of the Premier League. We should be winning this comfortably, shouldn't we, Jay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like you said, they've had a little bit of a struggle in the league. I think they've edged themselves away from that relegation battle that you were mentioning there, but it's not been a good season. I think they're sat in 13th, and I don't think this is a particularly strong La Liga. I think it's all right, but I don't think it's jam packed full of top quality teams. I think obviously Barcelona and Real Madrid are very good, but then it tails off a lot. So I think if you sat 13th in the league, that says a little bit about what kind of a season you're having. They do have a lot of experience, but they've got some players who are past the best, if we're being honest about it. I look at Manchester United this season, I look at the way we performed, especially at Old Trafford, and I feel like we should be too strong for them. And now I know we've said this before, we said it under Jose, we said it under Ole, where we've come unstuck against Sevilla. But I do feel the way that United have been playing this season, even with the poor away form and the way that Sevilla have gone about it in the Liga and no, not so much in Europe, but in the Liga especially, I fancy us for this one. I mean, let's not forget, we played Barcelona, played very well in the new camp, played very well at Old Trafford against the Barcelona team that's 13 places above or 12 places above them in the league, and just an absolute massive gulf in the amount of points they've got between those two sides. I know that doesn't always tell you the entire story, but if we can, get past the team that's top of the Liga, we should be able to get past the team that's 13th. And like you say, does have issues around discipline, is having a bit of an underwhelming season, does have a lot of aging players as well. I fancy United for this one.
Yeah, and here's another statistic which surprised me. We've never beaten Sevilla in a European competition. Now would be a good time to start, wouldn't it?
No, you're right. I
Because
mean, our record, we've had some pretty devastating losses. You look at the one under Jose in the Champions League, the semi-final under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well. That one, those results hurt. So yeah, we do owe him one, and you have to be wary of it. But you've got to be realistic as well. And whilst we went into those games as the favourite, and like I said earlier, we came unstuck. I feel like that's the one against Sevilla in the Europa League. That was a much stronger Sevilla side than we're facing now. The one in against Sevilla in the Champions League, that was a far stronger Sevilla side than the one we're facing now. This is a team that's in the bottom half of the La Liga table, where those teams I mentioned earlier were teams that were doing really well. So, yeah, I think, like I say, you have to respect that record and be wary of it, but I still fancy United.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't know many of their players anymore the way I used to. I used to be familiar with, maybe 6 or 7 Sevilla players. Now it's not quite the same. And maybe that's reflective of where they are in the table. They're not doing very well. But yeah, hopefully United can get the job done in the first leg. Come on, let's go score 4 or 5 here like we did against Betis. I know we scored 4 against Betis at Old Trafford, but it really should have been more, shouldn't it? So maybe
Yeah.
let's look for maybe 5 this time. I know I'm being a bit greedy here, but it's realistic.
Well, Vegos could have had an hat trick, couldn't he? I know he got one in the end, but he could have had a few. Anthony could have had a few as well, or he could have played in one of his teammates. So yeah, it was a pretty dominant performance. When Betis had like a little bit of a purple patch or a little bit of a spell towards the end of the first half. Sorry, but other than that, I felt United were pretty much in control of that game. So yeah, I'd fancy us against Sevilla. And like I say, you look at Ericsson and Casemiro coming back into the side. Like the fact that Anthony Martial should be able, presumably, to make a start as well. It's 3 big players coming back into the team. So, you look at that, you look at the quality we've got elsewhere. Yeah, come on. Let's not be too negative.
Yeah, we've every right to believe that we can go and hammer this team because of what we've done against stronger La Liga teams already in the competition. I know. Can you believe this statistic as well? We have if you include friendlies, we have played 8 La Liga teams this season. That's remarkable, isn't it? I think Sevilla is the 8th, and we've done pretty well in the competitive games, which obviously is most important. And what's really strange is that a lot has been talked about. A lot has been made of the fact that we struggle away from home against the better teams domestically, but probably one of our best performances away from home this season was in the new camp, a game that you were at. We probably should have won that game. That's strange. How can United be so good in the new camp, yet go to the Etihad, Anfield, and the Emirates and not perform very well? It's odd,
It's
isn't it?
it is odd. It's a weird one because Barcelona are a strong team, and you go to the new camp. It's one of the biggest stadiums you can go to, and the crowd. I was there, like you say, the crowd were up for it. It wasn't like they didn't turn up for Barcelona fans, and Barcelona had a pretty decent team out that game. They obviously missed a couple of plays afterwards, didn't they? As Gavi and Pedri were unavailable for the return leg, but they were available for that one. So it was a little bit strange. But I think that this is the problem with United is if we turn up, we can play anyone and beat anyone. We just fell apart sort of twice. We fell apart 3 times this season. The Brentford game, the City game, and the Liverpool game. You look at the games like Villa and Arsenal, we were in it for a little while. Things just went wrong. But it is a worry, the fact that if we go behind away from home, we have got this trait where everything just goes wrong all of a sudden. It's like players who've been playing really well all season suddenly just either lose their heads or disappear. So it's something that Eric Ten Hag has to fix. But no disrespect to Sevilla, getting beat away at Anfield or away at the Etihad is a completely different than getting beat away at Sevilla. I think our away record, we have beaten a lot of teams away this season as well. So we have to look at that and go, look, if it's a team that's not great, usually we do okay against them away from home as well.
So Casemiro will come back in for this game. Ericsson, I don't anticipate that he's going to start this one. Perhaps he'll get maybe 30 minutes in this game, and then maybe look at starting him at Forest. But Rashford might be missing, and Luke Shaw as well. If Rashford's touch and go, would you just let him put his feet up for this one and get ready for Forest? Given the fact that we've got Martial back as an option, what do you think?
100%, yeah. I wouldn't rush him. We've done that in the past and it's cost us. And I think the fact that Martial's back now, it's for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. You can start with Martial. Say you started with a front three of Martial, Sancho, and Antony. That's a strong front three. It should be strong enough to beat Sevilla. And you can give Marcus the night off. Comes back for the Forest game, which don't forget is an important. We need to win that. Can't be dropping points against a team right near the bottom of the table. So bring him back for that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I just hope he is back for that. I hope it isn't, he's out for a few weeks because regardless of the fact Anthony Martial's back. We need Marcus Rashford. He's been absolutely on fire this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see Rashford get to that 30 goal mark, because he's so close now, isn't he? And it's not often that a United player gets to that point. How far do we have to go back before a United player scored 30 goals in a season? Is it Van Persie, or did Ibrahimovic came close to it, didn't he?
I
Um,
think Ibrahimovic's got 28. I think, yeah. So I think it might be Van Persie. No one springs to mind post Van Persie. Like you say, Zlatan I think got 20. I think Lukaku ended up on 28 in his first season in all competitions. So yeah, it's not great, is it? The fact, well, there's nothing wrong with not getting to 30 goals. You know, Rashford had a season where he got 20 odd, Martial 20 odd. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it'd be great to see him get to 30 and it'd be like a new sort of benchmark for him to have reached.
Yeah, because the type of strikers in the past for United, they used to get to that mark where players like Van Nistelrooy and Dennis Law, so he'd be in great company if he managed to get there. Um, Barring injury, he could get to 35 easily, I think, given the amount of games that are left. Let's
Yeah,
hope so. But
definitely.
obviously it's more important that we win the team honours, like the FA Cup and the Europa League. But and Ericsson's coming back at the right time. All of a sudden it looks like we have options in midfield. So that really helps us with the running. I was just talking about this the other day, with my co-host. Who would you select in midfield now that everyone's available? I mean, Sabitzer came in to compensate for the loss of Ericsson in January. Now they're both available. Casemiro's back, Bruno's there. Then obviously you have Scotty and Fred. Who would your midfield three be if everyone's fit?
That's a good question. If everyone's fit, I'd be tempted to play a stronger team. Obviously, Casemiro's suspended anyway for the Forest game, so I would be tempted to play Casemiro, Ericsson, and Bruno. I think Bruno can play every game. I do. I think he's just got that in him. And I also think Casemiro with the suspension will want to play. And Ericsson, this could be a good game to bring him back in. He had a little cameo, didn't he, against Everton? Bring him back into this one. Sevilla at home. It's not, the harshest of tests. And maybe just give him 45, perhaps. Maybe give him a start. Get a goal or whatever in the first half, and then maybe you can change him from McTominay or whoever else a bit. So, but I'd pick my strongest midfield, mate.
Yeah, I think Ericsson will get 30 to 45 in this. I don't see him playing the whole game. But it's even in that wee cameo at the weekend, we saw what we missed. Oh, just that lovely passing range with both the left and right foot. So that's going to be very, very important, come the business end of the season. Especially, one of the hardest games we've got coming up, in my opinion, is that FA Cup semi final against Brighton, because Brighton have been tremendous this season, and we need to have our strongest 11 starting that game, and that includes Casemiro and Ericsson, in my opinion, and Rashford hopefully as well. So
No,
because
you're right. You can't dismiss Brighton. I think too many people they're having a really good season, and I think that there's absolutely every chance that they could do us if we take it too lightly.
yeah, definitely. I mean, they've been robbed three times this season, where the officials have admitted to getting it wrong. At the weekend, they really somehow they came away with nothing, and they should have won the game. That Atomo penalty, I have no idea how that wasn't given.
No,
And
honestly, it's shocking, isn't it? Things like that. You look in, you go, it's just like you're just robbing him.
yeah, it's just totally unfair. So it was. And there's a few other incidents in that game that were a bit controversial, but it just seems to happen to Brighton. Hopefully, we beat Brighton and there's no complaints, there's no issues with the officials. I want to beat them fair and square. Um, yeah. So, what's your what 11 do you anticipate taking this game? Do you think Varane will come back in? I think so. It's toss up as to who he selects at right back these days. Although my preference is definitely Wan-Bissaka. My preference is to keep Wan-Bissaka over Dallo. Um, I think a lot of people have changed their minds on that at the moment, especially for bringing someone like Frimpong. Um, he's a very attacking fullback, almost like a wing back. I think he does play wing back in a lot of their games, and he gets very far up the pitch. I think him and Wan-Bissaka would give us a nice balance. We have a defensive fullback and an attacking one. Where if you had Dallo and Frimpong, you'd have two very sort of attacking fullbacks, and none of them are particularly great defensively. So I don't. But everything in the media at the moment seems to indicate that Wan-Bissaka is the one who's up for sale. That doesn't really make much sense to me. How do you feel about it, Jay?
I get what you're saying because Jeremy Frimpong is very, very good going forward. His numbers are ridiculous, but his numbers defensively are almost as bad as they are good going forward. So I understand that you look at the Newcastle game in the Carabao Cup final, the lows on a booking, Sam Maximum's getting the best of him, or the better of him, sorry. You brought on Wan-Bissaka, who had an absolute stormer. That defensive sort of nous, if you will, and ability is something that Delo hasn't quite got. I do like Diogo Delo. I think he's a decent player. I think he gets a little bit of stick sometimes as undeserved, but it does make sense what you're saying. I get that. I get that argument that if you want someone who's, say you've 1-0 up or you're defending a lead or you've got a left winger who's causing you dramas, you'd think that Aaron Wan-Bissaka would be your man. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at that, but I think, in all honesty, the noises are that he fancies Delo more than he fancies Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, and I totally disagree with the manager on that. Even though I'm a big fan of Ten Hag, I don't. If that's the case, then I don't agree with him. I'd rather have Wan-Bissaka, particularly if we are bringing in Frimpong, because you know, yeah, because in that Carabao Cup final, if you want to substitute, if you were like substituting Delo there because he's getting rinsed, by Saint Maximin, if you bring on Frimpong, he's going to get rinsed as well. So
Yeah,
you need it.
they're not that guy, are they? Defensively, it's like you say, you go, we need to tighten up at the back. Frimpong isn't that guy, neither's Delo. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front.
Okay, everybody, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and get your comments in. Thanks for your comments. Brian Casey and Nim is joining us as well. I think does he know you, Jay? um,
And he might be someone who's come on Stretford Paddock and joins us on the chat. I think I recognise the name. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So my lineup for the Sevilla game would probably be De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Martinez, Malacia if Shaw doesn't make it, and then Casemiro, Ericsson for 45 minutes, Bruno, Anthony, Sancho, and Martial up front if Rashford doesn't make it. Yeah, that would probably be my team. But something I want to bring up is Facundo Pellistri. Now, some of my friends are desperate for him to get more minutes, and I totally agree with them. But and you like at the weekend was another example, or where people with me were calling for Pellistri to come on. I was thinking, no, I don't see Ten Hag doing it. You bring him on if we're 3-0 up, 4-0 up, or if we're desperate for a goal, like we're 1-0 down, and there's 10 minutes to go. If we're only winning 1-0 for most of the game, I just don't think that's a situation he's going to bring him into. Sorry. But I would like to see him get more minutes. He's really, really impressed me every time he's come on as a substitute or even started in Betis, for example. So I would like to see more of him. Would you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because every time you think a player isn't going to get any minutes, or the manager don't fancy him, or his time at United isn't working out under this manager, he seems to just sort of he'll put him in the team, and then all of a sudden they'll drop a performance. You'll think, actually, there's something in this. This kid's got something about him. So yeah, I do. I agree. I understand he's an exciting player, very direct, and unlike Anthony, who likes to cut in on that left foot, Palestri can get down the right and whip a crossing, as like you said. We saw it when he did it for Weghorst in the previous round. So yeah, no, I like the kid. I think he's decent. He gets everyone going. There's a touch of there's a little bit like Ganacho on the other side when he plays, getting in behind, running at defenders. Very direct. You like to see it. So yeah, I've been impressed with him, and there's a reason why he's so highly regarded for his country as well. He gets caps and stuff, doesn't he, for Uruguay, where he wasn't even getting the United team. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of him in a game like this as well, where it's there for the taking really, against a Sevilla side who have struggled defensively this season.
Yeah, similar to the Betis tie. If we blow Sevilla away in the first game, yeah, I can see Pellistri starting the second leg, just as just in the same as the previous round. That would be a situation where I can see him get 90 minutes. But hopefully maybe he can come on at the end of this game, or even and get an opportunity with maybe 20, 30 minutes to go, because he always seems to produce something, whether it be creating a chance, getting an assist, or having a shot on goal. And he just he's like an old-fashioned right winger as well. He's right-footed, and he goes down the line and crosses the ball. Certainly don't get that from Anthony. So he offers something different, really, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. That's the thing, and it's something like you might need a bit of that, bit of variation as well, because like you said, we saw it against Betis, where as soon as Palestra came on, whips that ball in, and Vegos gets the goal that he'd been chasing all night basically, and then did the celebration that lasted for about 10 minutes.
Just want to bring up what Brian Casey was saying, is that he believes that Timber could be on the transfer list as well as an alternative to Frimpong. I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. I definitely see one of them coming in this summer. I know Timber is versatile, and with Ten Hag loves, he can also play right back and centre back. So I suppose it'll come down to price and all that, and how much we have available in terms of our budget.
Yeah,
Someone here is a massive fan of you, Jay. John here in the chat. He says you're
thanks,
a
John.
legend.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
um, so I want to get on to a wee bit of a transfer gossip. And quite recently in the Mail, Simon Jones wrote an article saying that United are going to get rid of 13 players this summer. That's not perhaps not quite as dramatic as it sounds, because this is going to include Phil Jones, Tuanzebe, Brandon Williams, Donny van der Beek, maybe Tom Heaton, players who don't really feature. So the only real first teamers that I can see leaving is the likes of Maguire, McTominay, and Martial. The rest of the players probably leaving. One of the right backs might leave, but the rest of the players that will be part of that 13, if it happens, will be fringe players. You're not really involved at the moment, so it's not quite as dramatic as it sounds, is it, Jay?
No, I get that. You think 13 players, that's ridiculous. But we've got a lot of players that don't really feature. We've got a lot of players that have had injury issues. You mentioned there, I mean, there are some big names there. Potentially, you could see McTominay, Maguire, Martial maybe move on. Those would be big names. But then you've got the likes of Eric Bailly, Donny van der Beek, Anthony Elanga, Brandon Williams, players who just aren't getting games and aren't looking likely to get games. So it's going to be a bit of a mix. I think the main thing for me is the players that move on that do get games. We need to get money for them. We need some funds coming in, because it's not just going to be about new owners give us a blank checkbook or whatever, financial fair play stuff like that. So you need to get some money in so we can fund a bit of a spending spree in the summer, because we need at least 3 players, I think.
Yeah, 3 quality additions would really help us. I don't think we need wholesale changes at this point, in terms of incomings anyway. I think we need, obviously a centre forward. We need you could argue 2 midfielders, definitely one. My priority would be an alternative to Casemiro, because if he's going to get suspended all the time, we need someone who can deputise for him. But I think from what I read from the Athletic, for example, they're saying that a number 8 is the preference this summer for the manager. So and right back, obviously, it seems certain as well that we're going to bring someone in there. So right back, midfield, and centre forward. If we get quality additions in all those, then we're really going places. Now, Ivan Ferguson has been linked. Now, I've been desperate for another Irish player to play for Manchester United. We've had so many of them, down the years, even historically and during my lifetime. We've had lots of defenders and midfielders in my lifetime. In the last 30 years, we've had Dennis Irwin, Roy Keane, John O'Shea, Darren Gibson, Johnny Evans, but we never had a striker. To have a quality Irish striker playing for Manchester United, that really would be the dream for me. So, is he a player that you rate highly, Jay?
I do. I think he's having a very good season. I think he's at 4 Premier League goals so far in about 12 games, which is a decent return for a teenager. I do think, like, if you can get him in though, as maybe he comes in and he's a backup striker or whatever, or he's a rotating one. We just need to be where we don't overpay for him, because sometimes you can have these players that come in, you have a purple patch, you do really well, and then they tail off a little bit. So I'll just be cautious about United going, paying too high a price for a youngster who's still relatively unproven. I know he looks the real deal, but you'd like to see him over the course of a full season what he can do, because he didn't really play last season. This season he's obviously played sort of half the season or a third of it. So I'd just be a little bit wary, but he definitely looks like he could be an amazing talent. And if his career goes the way it's looking, then yeah, it'd be definitely worth getting in now rather than waiting 5 years and having to pay 100 million for him or whatever.
Yeah, a big mistake would be signing a 30-year-old Harry Kane and then letting them replace Harry Kane with Ferguson, and then us having to go back to Spurs and play in 3 years and pay 100 million for Ferguson. That's get him
That'd be
now.
very United, that wouldn't it? That'd just be a typical Manchester United thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I would like to bring him in, but perhaps ideally bring him in with a more experienced centre forward at the same time. But maybe I'm being greedy, because I suppose if we're going to bring in an Osimhen or a Kane or a Ramos, they're going to cost top dollar. So there might not be spare cash to bring in Ferguson. Suppose this is up to Ten Hag, to make those decisions. But I don't want to let a talent like that go to somewhere else in the Premier League, or if he stays at Brighton and scores 20 league goals next season, his price is just going to go up and up. So I think he's the type of player that Alex Ferguson would have signed right now. He liked a good young player, didn't he? Especially young strikers, and he would get them in early, before the price goes up. So he's definitely someone that I want to see come in. But I do understand your concerns that he's still unproven and hasn't played that much first team football in the Premier League. But this is a player that was so good that he was playing for Bohemians of Dublin, in a pre-season friendly against Chelsea when he was 14. And from what I've seen of the clips, he didn't look out of place. You see, when someone is playing senior football at 14, they're a hell of a talent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah. So says it all, really. Like I say, we just got to see how it pans out. And if you can get the balance right between, bringing him in and not overspending, then you're laughing.
yeah, definitely. It all depends on our budget. And our budget will probably depend on two things. Who's the owner of the club, and secondly, how much money we can we raise in terms of sales, because we want to comply with FFP and all that. Um, yeah. So another striker I wanted to talk about was Charlie McNeil, who's on loan at Newport County. I think you were talking about him earlier on your show. He's had a bit of a mixed bag at Newport. He scored goals, but he's got a bit of a rough time from defenders. So have you been following his progress down at Newport?
Yeah, I was. There was an interesting article about him in the Manchester Evening News today, and I was looking at. I know he scored a couple of goals there. It's not had it all easy. Obviously, rough and tumble of League Two, and he's had to sort of find his feet a little bit. But he was getting some praise for his goal the other day for a great finish, and I think that just getting those two goals. I know it's nothing to go berserk about, but it's senior goals in professional football. It's a sort of a first step. Like I say, he's only a kid and he's only 19 years old. So hopefully, if he can develop, he needs to develop physically as well. I think then there's a player there. I just feel like might have to be a little bit patient with Charlie McNeil, because I've been a big fan of him for the academy. I think he's been a great player, and he's not his record at like youth level and sort of under 16s level was ridiculous. I think he scored something like 600 goals or something stupid like that. So there's a player there who knows how to finish. It's just a case of, with someone like that, developing him in the right way, getting him game time. He'll benefit massively from League Two football. Next season, I think it'll probably be a season too soon for him to be bothering the first team at United. Send him out on loan again. Maybe he steps up a level, goes to a championship side or even a League One side, and we just get him developed the right way. Because I think if we can get him sort of on the right path, and if he can focus and keep his head down and keep moving forward the way he has been, and develop physically as well, then potentially you've got a great goal scorer there. And I'd love to see Charlie McNeil in a Manchester United shirt in the future.
Yeah, he just needs to develop physically, and going to League Two. There's no better place to go to get him that experience of playing against really physical players who are targeting him. That'll really help him in his development. Um, because lots of young players, they kind of need that, don't they? They need to toughen up. Going to a league like that, that'll certainly help them get there. So I just want to sidebar here to the back to the ownership situation. There's been a wee bit of breaking news, probably not that it's probably not that huge in the grand scheme of things. But there's been an update anyway from Mike Keegan of the Daily Mail. He says a third round of bids for United is set to take place. Fresh offers are due at the end of the month. The third round of bids means that there will be have to be rapid progress for a new owner to be in place for the forthcoming transfer window. So yeah, as expected, it's not a huge, update, but it means the third round of bids will be in at the end of the month. Um, Now I know we obviously have the two obvious candidates, Jim Radcliffe and Sheikh Chazim, but we also had this a strange bidder from some Finnish businessman. Um,
Yeah,
it probably doesn't have the cash or the financial backing to buy the club, but he's like coming up with all these suggestions that all three of them should join forces, or he's going to join forces with the fans to buy the club. It just seems fanciful, doesn't it? That
yeah. I don't think he's going to buy it. I think he was saying, "Oh, like we'll all do it together, or I can get some people in who join me. Maybe Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe can team up with me." And I thought, well, they don't want to do that. And the idea that he's going to buy half the club and the fans are going to buy the other half. I mean, it's quite noble and romantic, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't either. I think the two most likely outcomes for me, and most people won't like this, is that the Glazers will stay, or Sheikh Jazim will take over. The third most likely outcome, I think, is Jim Radcliffe will take over. Um, but the reason why I think Radcliffe will lose out if the Glazers decide to sell is because obviously the Sheikh Jazim has access to more capital than what he does. So it's difficult to see, him beating the Qataris to ban United. But who knows how things could turn out. I certainly don't see this Finnish businessman being the owner of Manchester United.
No, I
Um,
don't either.
I think he's just doing this to raise his profile. It stinks of that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It just is like a load of nonsense, to be honest with you. Like I say, sounds good, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, no way. Um, Yeah, I just want to come to the point that Brian was making there. He was asking us, is there any players currently out on loan that you could see come back to the first team next season? Well, straight away, I'm thinking of Ahmad at Sunderland, who's had a magnificent season. He's been nominated for Young Player of the Year in the EFL Championship. I could see him coming in and providing competition for Anthony next season, 100%. Would you agree, Jay?
Yeah, I would. I could do. I could see him sort of troubling the first team. I think he's been, he's done very well at Sunderland. He's been one of the best players in the Championship. And if you look at the way he's progressed as well, he's still only a kid. I think he comes in and does a job next season. I don't know if he'll start, but I certainly think he can be an option from the bench.
Yeah, definitely. And he could play certain games in the cup competitions or in the you know uh, group games in Europe if we're already through stuff like that. Or he come on he could come on as a substitute in certain games. But I don't see him being a regular next season unless he just goes up another couple of levels. But he certainly developed massively from where he was at Rangers. Like it just looked like he'd gone backwards massively at Rangers, but at Sunderland he's just exploded into life, and his confidence has gone through the roof. He even takes penalties for Sunderland. Um, so yeah, there's a huge opportunity for him next season. But there's probably not a room for both him and Palestri though. The manager might have to make a decision there on which one he favours the most.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because he's got two similar players in a similar position. So yeah, there's options there though. Isn't there? You got young Garnacho, you've got Palestri, you've got Diallo, and obviously we've got Anthony and Sancho and Rashford. So we've got options. We just need to work out which is the best ones.
I tell you what I loved the other day was that footage of two young kids. I think they were brothers. They're waiting outside Carrington for with their Argentina flags for Garnacho and Martinez, and the two players stopped to sign autographs and get pictures with them. So that was a real wholesome moment. That's what football's all about, really, isn't it, Jay?
Oh, 100%. I love seeing stuff like that. And I feel sorry for some of the younger fans because I used to go to the cliff and get autographs and pictures with players all the time. And now you think, well, it's not really the dumb thing, is it anymore? So it's always good when you see stuff like that.
Yeah, footballers are not quite as accessible as they used to be. Back in the '90s. So fans used to. There was a, I think there was a bar It's a kind of not there anymore. It's like a bar slash hotel in Sale, where a lot of the players in the 90s apparently came back and had pints after the games, and a lot of the residents in the hotel could
Yeah,
mingle with the players.
yeah.
But
I think Paddy Crowin had a pub actually that he owned that was like that.
yeah, we don't really see that anymore. Uh, you know, outside the Carrington, at the end of the driveway, or else immediately after the game, when the players are coming out and getting into the cars. That seems to be the only opportunity to really meet players now. Um, Now I just want to come to what John's been asking here. He says, would you like to see Sedan Iqbal given a chance next year? Bags of talent. His career's kind of stalled at Old Trafford, hasn't it? We haven't really seen any of him this season, have we, Jay?
No, like you say, he had a good pre-season, and it looks like he was going to get either a loan move or feature in the first team, and neither's happened. He's not had any minutes in the first team, and he's not gone out on loan. And you see the likes of Charlie Savage gone out on loan. Kobe Mainu, who's younger than him, has leapfrogged him in the pecking order, has had more minutes. So, bit of a weird one. I do like Zidane. He's a very good player, good talented kid. Seems to have his head screwed on as well. So, I'm hoping that he gets an opportunity next season, because this season feels like almost like a wasted one for him.
Yeah, it has. He might as well have been on loan this season. And it would have been more productive for him if he played 38 games somewhere else. Another player, I know he's not at United anymore, whose season has been totally wasted, is Jimmy Garner. He came on as a sub the other day, but he's played almost nothing at Everton this season. Maybe injury has had something to do with that, but been a real shame what's happened to him, isn't it? Because he was a hell of a talent and he was amazing at Forest, and I thought he'd come back at United and get an opportunity, but it just didn't work out for him. He seemed to be just earmarked as a player who was going to be sold to raise funds last summer, albeit it wasn't very much, was it, in the end? Um,
Yeah.
uh, it's a real shame that, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Yeah, I was the same. I thought there was expected big things, and then it just didn't happen. And sometimes it just shows you how sort of cutthroat it can be, and how difficult it is to make the grade at the very highest level. Sometimes you think, "Oh, that kid's got it, and he's going to be the one," and it doesn't work out. And there's so many stories like that, so many players like that that have happened over the years that you go, "Okay, he's going to be something special." But obviously, playing for Manchester United, it's not easy, and sometimes it's just that little step up that they haven't quite got.
One of the best examples of that is James Wilson. There was a player back in 2014 I was so excited about. I thought that he's going to be another one of those homegrown strikers at Old Trafford, like Mark Hughes, or to a lesser extent Donny Welbeck. But he ended up within a few years he was playing for teams like Salford City. I don't know where he is now. I think he might
Yeah, I
even be
think
in
he went. I
Scotland,
think he
maybe.
went
Yeah.
to Port Vale. I think.
No.
I'm not sure actually, but yeah, like you say, he was at Salford, and even that didn't really work out for him. It was a bit of a shame for Wilson, James Wilson, because he had a very bright start, and he seemed like a decent lad, but just just didn't happen for him. I think he scored a couple of goals on his debut, and then that was like the end of his United career after that. To be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think injuries really set him back as well, unfortunately. I remember when we beat Liverpool 3-0 at Old Trafford in December 2014, around that time. He was starting in the front three with Van Persie and Rooney. That was where he was at that moment and how highly Van Gaal rated him. So to go from that to playing for Port Vale is pretty shocking, really. And that's the way things can go. You can turn out you can be a Mark Hughes, or you could end up playing for Port Vale. It's just and Charlie McNeil could be could be one of those things, or he could be another one of those. You just don't know what way his career's going to go. But hopefully, he's more Mark Hughes than James Wilson.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there for today. If everyone can please smash a like on the video, get your comments in down below, and subscribe to the Glued Away My Night podcast. And I will see you again then, Jay, some other time.
Yeah, definitely, man. Always a pleasure coming on and chatting to you. So just give us a shout, and yeah, we'll have a good chat again soon.
Definitely. Maybe we'll be chatting after we've won the Mickey Mouse treble at the end of the season.
Listen, I'll take it. At least the one thing as well, it stops City winning the actual treble if we win the FA Cup. So I'll take it. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, that is a fact. Okay, I'll see you later.